Those who aren't aware, the CIC stands for Citizens Involvement Council. This is the gathering of all the representatives of the various neighborhood associations in our city of Oregon City. So we notice that we have a light agenda this evening, so we're going to try and keep it light so we can get home and watch how Kirstie Alley does on Dancing with the Stars. She was last week, she'll be first. So roll call.
Dawn Wright, Berkeley Hills, excused. Walter White, Berkeley Hills.
Present.
Howard Post, Kanema. Here. Paul Edgar, Kanema.
Here.
Larry Hanlon, Caulfield.
Present.
Rachel Gunderson, Chamber, excused. Amy Wilhite. Here. Kathy Hogan, Hazel Grove. Tom O'Brien, Hazel Grove.
Here.
Steve Anderson, Hillendale.
Here.
William Gifford, Hillendale.
Here.
Michael Berman, Main Street.
Here.
Bill Daniels, McLaughlin.
Here.
Alice Watts, McLaughlin.
Here.
Tom Guile, Park Place.
Present.
Steve Van Haverby, Park Place.
Here.
Bruce Danielson, Rivercrest.
Here.
Hattie Brown, Rivercrest. Eileen Olson, Rivercrest.
Here.
Both Rick and Box are excused. Steve Tame, Tower Vista. And John Lewis.
Here.
He's here.
May I make a suggestion that I'm not expecting that Patty is going to continue as a representative, so I think that we can scratch her from the roll call
All right.
because Eileen and
Take her
Eileen
place.
and Bruce are
Yeah.
covering that up.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a guest speaker this evening, Corey Streisinger from NEDCO, the Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation, will make about a 15-minute presentation and followed by at least a maximum of 10 minutes of questions. Please come on down.
I appreciate your inviting me here this evening. Again, I'm Corey Streisinger, and I'm a foreclosure counselor with NEDCO, Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation. And when I mention to someone that I'm a foreclosure counselor, there's usually two reactions. One of them is, you know, I have a friend who's really having trouble and at risk of foreclosure. And the other one is, what are foreclosure counselors? So actually, I want to talk about both of those things today because it is surprising how many people know, have a friend, a family member, a coworker, a neighbor who is struggling with their mortgage, and there are resources available to help, but it's also surprising how many people don't know that those resources are there. So that's what I'd like to talk about a little today. So foreclosure in general, I think we all know, I mean, and certainly can imagine that it can be devastating for the family facing foreclosure. And it has short-term and long-term consequences. Of course, the immediate consequence is unstable housing situation. Not just losing the home, but may be very difficult to find a next place to live. It may be, because of the effect on credit, very difficult to buy another house, even if the individual's finances can support it. It may even be difficult to rent because often a credit check is part of a rental application, and there may or may not be the ability to move in with other family members. So housing instability is a real risk for someone facing foreclosure. And then financial insecurity, not just in the short term but the long term. Obviously the impact on credit, but also for many people their feeling of financial security historically has been equity in their home. And as I think we all know, there's a great number of people now who have no equity in their home, maybe even underwater, and it affects the entire cluster of financial decisions about how comfortable someone feels making the next financial decision. Plus, if you're having trouble with your mortgage, it may well be that you're having trouble with your other debts as well. And so someone going through foreclosure can end up in a very bad situation financially. And then, of course, the emotional stress is very significant as well. Foreclosure also can affect the entire community, though, beyond just the family involved. The children, for example, may be suddenly forced to switch schools. So instability in the classroom, businesses lose a customer if the family has to move away. There's an impact on neighborhoods if a foreclosed home isn't kept up, for example. There's impact on property values. not only through possible deterioration of the foreclosed homes, but also then the drag that foreclosed homes can have on the market overall. So even someone who's in good shape can see their property values diminish because of foreclosures in a community. And it's a significant issue. In Oregon, almost 1 in every 5 Oregon homeowners is underwater currently. And in the last calendar year, July 2011 through July 2012, there were 10,000 Oregon homes actually foreclosed. That is going all the way through foreclosure sale. It's about 1 out of every 60 households with a mortgage. So that is a large number, and that, of course, doesn't count the ones that are at various stages in the foreclosure process. I don't have comparable numbers for Clackamas County with me, but the numbers that I do have indicate that last year in Clackamas County there were about 2,500 foreclosure filings. Now that doesn't mean that all of them are completed foreclosures, but foreclosure filings. So this is a big issue for a significant number of people. But there, as I said, there is actually help available. And so part of what we want to do is to get the word out, and then at the end of this presentation, actually, you can also ask your help with that. The state of Oregon has put together, in cooperation with nonprofit housing agencies like mine, a new central hub of resources and information for homeowners who are at risk of foreclosure. And that doesn't mean necessarily having gotten a foreclosure notice in the mail. It may be just someone struggling with making their mortgage payments and wanting to know what their options are. And then in addition, there's new funding for housing counselors. And so I want to talk about both of those for a minute. So here's the new website, OregonHomeownerSupport.gov, and I think you have a copy of this flyer. Was handed out. And we have more in case you want to take some with you, and if you know other people who might want to see that as well. And so through this website, some of the resources available. First of all, you can find a foreclosure counselor. There's a Find a Counselor feature on the website where you can enter your zip code, enter your city, and see what resources are available to you. You can also learn more about the mediation program that is just started up, but I will tell you, mediation program was authorized by the legislature this last February, and for a variety of reasons, primarily having to do with a court ruling that kind of came in at just the time that it wasn't expected, there are a lot fewer mediations right now than had been expected. The mediation program is required for non-judicial foreclosures, but most foreclosures in Oregon have just switched over to judicial foreclosures because of this court ruling. But still, there is information available, and we're hoping that the mediation program will be up and running as we move further along. There are also information available about different options for people to stay in their homes or if they want to transition out of their homes. And many lenders now have active modification programs that can, in fact, help people stay in their homes. So there's information about a number of those programs and where to go for help. And of course, as I said, one of the places that we really encourage people to go to for help is a housing counseling agency to talk to a foreclosure counselor. So there are housing counseling agencies HUD approved all across the state. The housing counseling agencies have been around for a long time, but until about 2008, they were mostly focused on helping people buy houses. So for obvious reasons, things changed a little in 2008, and a major focus since then has been helping people stay in their homes. Foreclosure counseling tends to be very effective in helping people understand the issues and have a successful outcome. So what does foreclosure counseling include? Well, we offer workshops where you can come and learn about the foreclosure process, about the process of seeking a modification to your loan or some other type of workout, a forbearance, some types of alternatives to foreclosure for people who can't stay in their home, like short sales, deed in lieu. And you can learn about what resources are available. And then we also offer one-on-one counseling with a foreclosure intervention counselor and actual help with the process. We help people work with their servicer. We help people deal with the paperwork. These programs are quite complicated. I don't know if any of you have been through or know a friend or family member who has applied for a loan modification, but the paperwork can be quite daunting, and it's very common for someone to submit a mass of paperwork and then be told to be asked to submit documents which they've already submitted, or be told something's missing but it's not clear. So we can work with the homeowner and the servicer to get those issues resolved and try to make the process a little less cumbersome. And national studies have shown that actually people who do work with housing counselors have better outcomes. The modifications, we don't have access to programs that the homeowner doesn't have access to directly, but because we're able to work with the servicer, often the outcomes are more positive. We don't charge for our services, and of course it is confidential. We get funding from the state and federal housing agencies, and we have private grant funding as well. So, and I should say, let me go just back a step. If someone is approached, a homeowner who's facing foreclosure is approached by someone offering help for a fee, I would say two things. There are legitimate for-profit entities that do this work. There are also a lot of scams. And the foreclosure process is a public process. That is, if you are actually in the formal foreclosure process, it's a matter of public record. So unfortunately, people who are scam artists do have access to people's names and addresses. Someone who needs help with foreclosure, with dealing with a foreclosure or dealing with a modification, you should not have to pay for it. The help is available free, and be very cautious, and particularly anyone who asked for money up front. That's probably a good time to call the State Attorney General's office and find out whether you're dealing with someone legitimate. As I said, foreclosure counseling is available around the state, and we have opened a new office, and that's actually what brings me here today. Here in Oregon City, actually about 4 blocks down the street, opened by NEDCO, Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation. NEDCO is a community development corporation that's been operating in Oregon since 1979. Actually, it's one of the oldest, headquartered in Springfield. So if you lived in the Lane County area, you might well know NEDCO's name. They've had an office in Marion County, in Salem, for the last 3 or 4 years, but the office here in Clackamas County is brand new, and actually it was opened to deal with this, the current foreclosure situation that we are dealing with, because there was no nonprofit housing agency operating and doing foreclosure counseling in this area. So we are a nonprofit HUD-approved counseling agency, and although NEDCO actually is engaged in a fairly wide variety of community development activities, here in Clackamas County there are 5 staff, and foreclosure is all that we do. So if you call there, that's who you will talk to. So I said I was going to ask for your help. And as I mentioned, what we find is that actually nearly everybody has somebody in their life somewhere who could use help dealing with their housing situation and dealing with their mortgage. But very often, someone who is at risk of foreclosure is embarrassed by the situation. I mean, we deal with a lot of people who say, I have never been in financial difficulties before, but often there was a job loss, and maybe the person is now back on their feet with a new job, but the income level is considerably less than it was and is not going to recover. Or another actually common but very sad pattern that we see is a medical emergency that's really affected the household income. But people in this situation, homeowners often come in and say, I've never had to ask for this kind of help before. So we want people to know that we are out there and then it is available. And we'd ask your help in thinking about community circles where you may be able to help get this word out. We do workshops actually twice a month now in Happy Valley at the fire station. And you can call us or on our website find out dates and the address for those workshops. And the little flyers that we have here, they're made to post on bulletin boards. We have larger posters as well, if you'd like, and we're happy to supply other information. For example, if there's a community newsletter where you think an article could be placed, we're happy to supply a draft newsletter article. Banners or buttons on websites, we can supply those as well. And of course, we're happy to come and speak at town hall meetings or other types of community gatherings if you think it would be useful. So we really need you to help us spread the word. The resource is available, but we can't help people who don't know that we are there. So here is where we are, as I said, right down the street, 421 High Street. And the contact information is also on this handout that talks a little about what we do as counselors. And I'm happy to hand out my business card to anybody who would like it. So happy to answer any questions you might have, and I hope I kept well within my time limits,
You did.
Mr. Chair.
I put my name up there, so I'll right over to you. First off, as a nonprofit, how do you get funded? I have
Funding for
two-part
this
question.
new office and for the foreclosure counseling actually comes from the state legislature, and the source of the funds is a national settlement between attorneys general around the country and the 5 largest mortgage servicers. You may have seen some press about this. So it was a fairly significant settlement, and Oregon's share, in part, has been used to add 26 new housing counselors around the state.
And the second part of my question is, too late for several people I know to have something like this, but I know with foreclosure and all the other things that go with it, there's a lot of embarrassment. And so a lot of these people are hesitant to go talk to anybody because of privacy. Well, what if they contact my bank or my mortgage? Can you kind of talk about that? I mean, if somebody comes to you, obviously, if you need to find out the facts, you sometimes have to contact those banks, and then they're afraid, oh no, I'm in a hard situation.
Well, that's a very good question. And so, first of all, our services are completely confidential. That is, any information shared with us, we don't share at all. Except, and you're quite right, we have to be in touch with the mortgage servicer. They are the party who we really need to deal with. So we do ask our clients, and it's their choice, to authorize us to contact the mortgage servicer on their behalf. But we don't reach out to anybody else. We do rely on the homeowner to bring us data. So we do need to see financial information, tax returns, pay stubs, things like that, because it's really important in dealing with the loan servicer to know what they know. We have to be able to get inside the head of the loan servicer and say, here's how the servicer is going to review your situation and look at your situation. Here's the questions that we're going to have to be prepared to answer. So we really actually need a very thorough financial picture, and we do ask for
Okay.
a stack of information, but we get that from the homeowner. We don't go talk to employers. We don't go talk to anyone else.
Okay. William, do you mind if we jump to Bill? I don't know who came in first. Bill, go ahead. Bill, you had a question. Go ahead.
From the McLaughlin neighborhood, so you're a neighbor. And welcome.
Thank you.
What took you so long?
Well, we were waiting for the check.
And that was primary. So it's county each. There's one. How many counties? And did you just mention Lane County and then Clackamas
So
County?
NEDCO operates in 3 counties right now, Lane, Marion, and Clackamas, and we also have a cooperative agreement with Polk Yamhill entity who's not HUD certified, but who we then partner up with. But there are other housing counseling agencies. So if you go to the state's website, you'll be able to find housing counselor agencies pretty much any part of the state that you are in. And there actually is another agency here in Clackamas County that is a for-profit, but that certainly is a legitimate other option.
Monday through Friday?
Yes, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5.
You're on the bluff then, on the
On the Promenade Building?
Right.
Yeah.
And one last thing, we'd like to invite you to one of our neighborhood meetings when you get a chance.
Great.
We have a
Be happy to
large
do
group
that.
of people
Okay.
interested in
Good, I'll leave you a card and you can
Thank
give
you.
me a call.
William Gifford.
Corey, thanks very much for being here. And thanks for NEDCO hooking up with the chamber, which is how I found out about you folks. Went to your open house and ribbon cutting, and it was a nice celebration. And welcome to the neighborhood. And I thought this might be a good forum for you to tell folks what you're doing. It is a sad statement that of all the counties in Oregon that Clackamas is in such a situation that we need your help. But we're glad that you're here. I did want to point out, and I didn't know if you were aware or not, that this meeting is being televised and is broadcast over public television. Well, it's not cable television, community television.
Well, I wasn't aware of that, but thanks for letting me know.
And it's being recorded, and it will be viewed. And it's shown several times throughout the month. So you'll be getting some good exposure out of this.
Well, That's good. I actually appreciate your saying so, and I hope people viewing it either live or later feel absolutely free to give us a call or to go to the website. And so maybe I should read the website address again. It's OregonHomeownerSupport.gov, and you can use the Find a Counselor feature on that website to find help, or you can just call us directly, and we're at 503-655-8974.
That's Oregon Homeowner Singular.
HomeownerSupport.gov. So yes, don't put two S's in the middle there.
Okay. Steve Bennett.
Yes, you'd mentioned earlier about training for counselors.
Yes.
And what's the process for getting that training, and who do you have to go to?
We are trained by an organization called NeighborWorks, which is a national association and entity that supports housing counseling and other community development corporations around the country. So it's a several-week training process, as well as then in-house training, because NEDCO has been doing foreclosure counseling for a number of years. So we get training from our colleagues at NEDCO as well. In addition, the state of Oregon has provided some training on the new mediation process.
Okay, so if somebody in town is looking to become a counselor, where would they go?
Well, that's a good question. And I would say to go to the NeighborWorks website, and what I don't know is whether they offer training to individuals or whether you have to be coming to them through a certified housing agency.
Okay.
Walter.
Hi, thanks for being here. So the last program, I think, from Washington was like there was maybe 6 or 8% of people actually got help with it, and that's what brought on this 49-state settlement. Is that correct? And then, what's your experience? And that ended in April, I think, or May.
Well, there are a number of programs active now that are a number that are federally sponsored,
Right.
and a number that are in-house programs,
Okay.
depending on the different servicers. And in fact, part of the Attorney General settlement creates some additional financial incentives for the larger servicers to be more aggressive in working with homeowners on modifications and other alternatives.
Right. In many ways, they don't really have an incentive, and that's what's been the problem. So are you seeing in the last, since the spring when this finally was a lawsuit which forced them to do something, the major banks, do you see anything happening?
Yes, we do.
I mean, like-
every
okay.
situation is different, but yes, definitely loans are
Compared to the
being
last
modified.
3 years? Because, I mean, literally for 3 years, we've had programs that nobody's done it. The banks have not approved these over and over again. They blame it on the investor, and the money has never really been spent, the original money designed for this. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in the banks, so that's why I'm just curious if you're seeing that it's actually happening.
I can't give you percentages,
Right.
but
No, no.
yes, we absolutely see it.
A big difference in the last 3 months or so.
So, it's very hard for me to answer
Sure.
that question as well, but
Okay.
I think
There's hope.
it's definitely an active world right now.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
You're at a tennis match. Now to this side. Alice.
Thank you. It just occurred to me, if the money came from a lawsuit, does it have a sunset? Is there a time when the money will be gone and your services will go with it?
Well, we have been funded for an initial 1 year with the possibility for extending up to 3 years. So that will be a legislative decision, and if our services are valuable, then we certainly want to be able to make the case that they're valuable and needed.
Hey, Bruce.
Are your services for anyone that's in trouble or only prior to notice of default being filed?
No, we work with people who are
actually in
default. In fact,
foreclosure.
we can work with people who have a sale date set. I think the absolute latest is 7 days before the foreclosure sale. If you're within 7 days of your actual foreclosure sale date, there's probably nothing we can do to get that sale date stopped.
Takes cash to stop it then.
Yeah, but no, we work with people at all stages.
Okay, in the second question, I just happen to have a friend that a major bank, instead of hiring personnel, they subcontracted it out. In his first batch, and this was several years ago when he's still in it, his first batch was like 2,500 mortgages that were headed for trouble. And after year and a half, his biggest problem was the people, even though he represented the bank, 30% of the mortgage holders would not even talk to him. And the bank gave him permission to take 30% of the principal, roll it back into a zero interest, zero payment second, and drop their mortgage 2 percentage points. And he couldn't even get 30% of them to talk to him. So, I mean,
You know, it's a real
I don't know how to get
challenge.
around that. And that's if you
And
had
I
an
think
answer.
often people are overwhelmed. There can be one of several reasons. One of them is it can be just terrifying. I mean, your mail is full of notices and complex paperwork, and people sometimes just stop actually opening the mail because it is overwhelming and frightening. And then, in addition, a lot of people find it quite difficult to work with their bank, just even because of the logistics of getting through the phone tree on occasion. So I mean, and
this was the bank, in essence, calling, and they said, we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I sympathize because and back to your question, there are definitely financial institutions out there that have active and even aggressive programs, and I would just say, you know, anything we can do if there's a homeowner that isn't talking to their bank, send them our way, and we'll see if we can be an intermediary there. It is we have heard from some of the loan servicers and banks that the mail doesn't that the notices don't get through because the mail doesn't get opened, or it's just not registering. So that story doesn't surprise me, but it does concern me because what we never want to see is someone lose their home when they had a possibility of keeping it.
Okay, William, I'm sorry. Get back to you in a minute.
Just one quick follow-up to Steve's question about training. A quick look at the internet says that the NeighborWorks site, when you do looking on it, that's a great URL, nw.org. nw.org, and there's a link at the bottom about training and certification.
Okay, Howard.
It seems to be a question of changing hands, like who owns the bank loan, because it's been factored so many times. How's that working? I know there's some problems with that.
Well, one thing that I've certainly learned is that there's no such thing as the lender. There's, first of all, the originator, who's the person who you dealt with in getting your mortgage. And then almost certainly that loan was packaged and resold and probably securitized, and so it is probably owned and may have been transferred several times, and it is probably owned by an anonymous investor pool, or it could be owned by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. But the person who you're dealing with is a servicer, and the servicer has a contract, a services contract with the investor, whoever that entity is, to be the interface with the borrower. And so it varies. There are some investors who don't do loan modifications. And the servicer is bound by whatever the constrictions are that the investor has placed. But these days, many investors at least do consider loan modifications. So although the homeowner will rarely actually know who owns the loan, but often it's not critical to know that, although it does make a difference whether it is Fannie or Freddie or a private investor.
Okay. One more question?
Just a comment on what she said. We had a problem with a house in the neighborhood. So I did a little research, and Mellon Bank in New York supposedly owned it. Taxes were sent to California, and when I emailed the Mellon Bank about this problem, my response was from a third company out of Texas. So I don't even know if the bank knows who really owns it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will say
Appreciate you being here.
I will say as we're moving on to the next one.
Thank you.
Interestingly enough, about 30-some years ago, that's how my voice got deeper. I was trained to foreclose on homes for U.S. Bank, and they always would train you, lower your voice, and you become very serious to the customer and client, and so you'd have to talk really low and mean business. Okay, next, approval of minutes. We go to William.
Well, it's been 2 months. I hope everybody remembered what happened 2 months ago. I say thank God for the video recordings. I guess we're looking for a motion to accept these minutes.
I move to accept them as currently written.
Second.
Who was the second, Bruce? Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those negative, against? I forgot what the word was. Opposed, thank you. Okay, and abstain? Okay.
One abstention.
One abstention, okay. All righty. Moving right along to old business. Proposed changes to Clackamas Park, an update.
I have one.
Whoa. Whoa.
It's happening. I talked to Scott, and it is in the system.
Scott.
Archer.
Okay.
And it's in the system, and I'm taking my motor home down there on 1 November, and if I go to jail, it didn't go through. If they let me stay there, it must be okay.
Okay, then. Does that complete your update?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to check it. Do you have a file for the bars?
I expect you to get me out, Paul.
Okay.
So what are the proposed changes to Clackamas Park?
It's handicap parking for disabled veterans. If you're a disabled veteran at 80%, you can park your motorhome.
You can camp there. Yeah.
Well, you got to park at the camp. So you can camp there at no charge.
And there's no limit on
5 days
Oh, you did
in
say
a
that.
particular month.
And I think that corresponds to state parks.
Yeah,
as
right
well.
down the line with the state parks.
Okay. Moving on to new business discussion items. The first one is the CIC Oregon City Chamber Candidates Forum. Now, this isn't exactly new business, but it is a discussion item that I'd like to discuss. We all know the history of this. I brought it up before. 2 years ago, the CIC partnered with the Chamber to do a candidates forum down at the Abernathy Center. This year, I asked if you'd like me to do that, and we said yes. We didn't take a vote. We just said, let's do this. During the process, a few changes were made. Initially, the Chamber was going to include some conversation about the measure that's on the voters' ballot this year, and there was a lot of discussion and controversy ensued. The Chamber decided to pull that conversation so that this would be just a candidates forum. There's still a little bit of controversy by people asking me if I'm approved, if I'm acting as an individual, or if I'm approved by the CIC, if I'm acting on behalf of the CIC. And as I've tried to tell everybody, the CIC said, sure, let's go ahead and do this because it's informative to the public. And as long as I feel, as long as I'm involved, the questions that Amber and I have come up with together are very calm, neutral questions that will give the candidates a chance to present themselves to everyone. If controversies erupt, let's explain first. I'm introducing the candidates. Amber introduces Christine, I think, Chin Ryan, who is the moderator from the League of Women Voters. She will take over from that point and ask 3 to 4 basic questions of the candidates. Then it's opened up to the public. If controversy happens, Christine knows to say, okay, this will be enough, and let's move on to the next question. So it's all guided very carefully and cautiously. Our city seems to be very fractured right now with different sides, and I didn't want that to happen. That's why I said I'm going to stay in this conversation and that the CIC should work with the Chamber on this. There was controversy over even the location of it. We've held it at the Abernathy before, and we're going to hold it there again this year because it's a free location and it has nothing to do with politics. It's just a location to hold a candidates forum. This does not take a vote, but I just wanted to make sure by even a quick conversation or saying, yes, we agreed. And Tom, so I need to hear from you if you agree to that. And before I stop on that, Bob, was I noticed you were giving something to Katie. Was that regarding this issue?
No.
Okay, good. So in other words, we've already planned this. It's tomorrow night. as I explained, it's going to be very basic, and I just want to make sure that I am speaking on behalf of the CIC when I just introduce candidates. Okay. Bill?
Are the questions, out of curiosity, are the questions already that you're preparing, have they already been given to the candidates, or will it be the first time that they hear those questions at that night?
I'm not sure which candidate. The chamber sent out a questionnaire to all the candidates to fill in, but the questions that Amber and I came up with were very basic questions, and they're not intense or about anything in the city. So I think most of them will hear for the first time tomorrow night. And again, there's only 3 that we are asking. It's mainly, who are you? Why do you want to do this? What kind of changes do you want to make? But it's very basic.
You're on record.
Yes, it's already, very, very basic. Anybody can answer those. Any one of us could go up to the podium and say that, and be able to answer those kind of questions. They're very basic. But there will be questions later from the audience, as we said. Audience questions are allowed, and I will walk around with a microphone and allow people to ask questions. And Christine will be controlling that portion of it. I'm just the microphone man. So, was there any other questions regarding that, or Paul?
I just want to congratulate you in attempting to enter into the fray in an honest way. To arbitrate a position of neutrality for all, and it was. I was aware of what you were doing. I thought it was a good move, and I thank you very much.
Thanks. Oh, are you asking to speak? Okay, I didn't know that was up there. Sorry, Tom.
Yes, we've done this before. We talked about it earlier this year. Decision at that time was to move forward with it. I see no reason why we shouldn't continue in that vein. I attended the previous one. I thought it was very well done. It was wonderful to have someone from the League of Women Voters there as the basic moderator to make sure that things flowed smoothly. I thought the location for the venue was ideal. Had an opportunity for people to gather afterwards and talk individually with the candidates, had an opportunity in advance to lay their literature out or their bumper stickers or whatever. I thought it was just marvelous 2 years ago. I see no reason why this one wouldn't be as well done.
Okay, thank you, Tom. William.
Tom, you might want to mention a couple of the logistical hoops that had to be gone through on the fact that the TSP had planned an open house that night, and they've moved that back to 7:30. So
can you spell out TSP for
so Transportation System Plan, and I'm sure John will be addressing that. But the Transportation System Plan had been scheduled about the same time, but this had already been, the press release had already gone out by the time that date was taken. So they agreed to move theirs back a little bit, and the other thing to mention. Oh, and
actually, we're gonna open it early, 4:30, and we were gonna stop at 6:30, but we're gonna keep somebody there. Sure. Yeah, so it'll be. You can come to the TSP open house, and then go to the candidates forum.
Oh, there you go.
I expect to see you there, Wayne.
Yeah, you just might. And the Hillendale Neighborhood Association has its meeting that same night, and Hillendale has moved our meeting back to 7:30 as well. So there's been definitely some adjustments. And the other thing to point out that it's not just the candidates, the 4 candidates for city commissioners. There's also going to be the 4 candidates for county commissioner, and there will be the 2 candidates for state representative there as well. So it's a pretty broad-based forum, and shouldn't be any fistfights.
Okay. The big thing here is I've been asked a couple times now, and I will respond with an email when I get home to say that when I'm working on this event, I am speaking on behalf of the CIC and not on just behalf of myself.
Sure.
And so that's what I mainly wanted to ask you tonight. I'm glad the meeting's tonight, so I can mentally prepare for tomorrow. Thank you. Kathy or Bill?
Mine's quick. Would you repeat the times for that?
The TSP?
No, for
those
for
the forum.
For the forum.
5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah.
Say it again.
5:30 to 7:30 at the Abernathy Center tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Oh, that one? Okay. All right. So if I don't hear anybody saying no, don't, or no, you're not speaking on behalf, then I will proceed with that. Do you all agree? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate that. And I will make sure that between Amber and I'm sure that we'll both do it very professionally and that everyone will be pleased with the outcome.
You did it last year, you did well, so why
Thanks.
not?
Thank you.
And if we are not, Tom, where do we take the pound of flesh?
I'll use my best collector's voice. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda. God, I don't have to do one of those in another 2 years. I'll be gone. The Project Advisory Group, McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2 Enhancement Project. Katie, are you speaking about that?
So Lita Foreman-Goodrich has come to me asking me to present this to the CIC. She and the people involved from Public Works and also probably the consultants are asking if the CIC would like to act as the project advisory group for the McLaughlin Boulevard Phase 2 Enhancement Project. I have passed around, I believe y'all have received the handouts here. I had to keep it kind of swaying. That's right. The first page here has the project goals, the design constraints, the role of the advisory group. On the back side of that, it has the tentative meeting schedule and the time that would be required for the presentation discussion for each meeting. And you can see in the bottom that they may ask other participants to come and be involved in the meetings as well. On the second page, or the third page probably now, this is the design. It's the one that, has the design phase at the top. And it's attached to the nice, colorful diagram. This is the fact sheet here, the who, what, why, where, when, how information. And then it has this diagram with all the comments here on it. So this is something that, as a group, we would have to make a decision on if it's something that, as a group, the CIC would like to participate in and take the time.
Would you mind explaining to everybody the time?
Yeah, it's on this. It's on the second page. So
But
the
I mean,
back
kind
of the
go over it
goals
with everybody now.
and the tentative meeting schedule. So it would be during our CIC meetings. It would be the very first presentation is shown here on Monday, November 5th, would be about 30 to 45 minutes. The next Monday, December 3rd, would be about 60 to 90 minutes. The Monday, January 7th, is about 60 minutes needed, and either April or May would be about 90 minutes needed. So that's the...
So that's on top of our general meetings, just so you're aware.
Well, we get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, big bucks. Okay, if that's it, we'll move to the questions.
discussion or whatever.
Discussions,
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
I see William, is that your name up there first, or is this left over?
That was from leftover. That was
Okay,
Sorry.
I've got this
I'll cover
pushed,
it.
but active item, but all I see is William, Paul, and Tom. Okay,
Paul now.
Paul now. No.
I think that this should be taken over as suggested by Katie, by the CIC, and as the land use chair of the CIC, I would look at it as a natural extension, and also the fact that Urban Renewal contributed $1 million into this project, and therefore, just candidly, as an Urban Renewal Commissioner, I would like to see a return on investment that comes out of this, and make sure that everything we do or is done complements creating greater development opportunities for the city and creates TIF to repay the $1 million that the Urban Renewal Commission has put into this. So, yes, I think that this is an opportunity and that we need to all jump into. Many of us, and I've talked around a lot with people, are not thrilled, or at this time have major objections to the roundabout at the end of Doones Drive. Others have major objections to the bioswale right on very valuable property next to McDonald's, south of McDonald's, that could represent $500,000 worth of property when many times that you could look at this bioswale being put below Clackamas Drive and then reserve that property for future economic development. So a lot of discussion needs to be talked out to see how we can optimize all of that to the benefit of the city, and it's going to need some creative thinking, and I would hope that we can get some people that have that to join in, and I would like to be part of it.
Okay, Tom O'Brien.
Yes, I have some serious concerns about the CIC acting as the advisory group for this for several reasons. Number one, I think that it's a significant time block taken away from our other business. I think that if individuals who are members of the CIC wish to participate, they should certainly be free to do so. When I read the commentary at the bottom of the second page about other project stakeholders would be invited to participate in these meetings, we have trouble keeping on target and on schedule and on time as it is. When we get representatives from TriMet and Parks and Recreation and businesses and bikes and pedestrian groups and all these other organizations that are going to be participating in our meetings, I think we could be running till 1, 2, 3 a.m. I don't want to do that personally, but for those of you who do, I would encourage you to sign on and be part of this project. The other concern I have is that for more years than I care to count, I have been asking the city to enforce its sign codes so that the city looks a bit more beautiful than what it currently does. I see this as primarily a beautification project to make sure that an entrance to the city is very presentable. I think we ought to get rid of all of our illegal signs, things that just are not appropriate to developing good businesses, and I just don't think it's part of our responsibilities, and I would think that we should not participate.
Okay, I think what you mean by not participate, you mean as a part of the CIC?
As a part of the CIC,
okay.
And having it as part of our meetings.
I guess I'm next up then. I see both points, and I see more names coming up here. I see both points, but I tend to agree that it's a land use kind of an issue, and we do have a land use committee for that. I see his point, too, that with all the other stakeholders involved, these could go on quite long, these meetings, when our meetings are already, we've been trying to contain them down for everyone's scheduling. I think, if anything, maybe we should have Paul, as the land use committee, ask for support and create our own committee to work with him and then come back to us to tell us what's happening, rather than maybe take up all your time. That's just something for all of us to discuss, but that way we're not all going to be here till 1 or whatever it is. And I know some of those good city commission meetings, but that's going to be my offering right now, is maybe pass it to the land use chair and ask those who wish to be a part of that to be a part of it. But let's go on to, I think Kathy Hogan was next, and then Walter.
I see all three of you.
Come up here and speak so we can hear you, will you, Kathy?
Grab the mic. Grab the mic, either one. It's probably closer to.
So I can give you the evil eye. It's Kathy. I can see all three of your understand all of it, but I do think we do need somebody responsible to help us and evaluate, because this is a lot of money, and who's going to pay it back? To me, it's another debt against urban renewal that does not bring a TIF in. Do we need a roundabout? Do we need to be cleaned up on the signs like Tom is talking about? Yes. But
how do you think?
On a side point, if I can't have any more than 15 or 10 minutes being a neighborhood association person coming to a meeting, why should they not make their presentations shorter?
So you're saying that if they can't make it shorter, you would prefer to have a group?
A group to do it. I think
do
they
it.
should be held to the 10, 15 minutes like everybody
Oh, you've
else.
had half hours.
Oh, no.
Just kidding you.
No, not really. But yeah, I
Okay.
think that,
I understand.
if you get somebody to help Paul,
Yeah.
and they can present it, or else if the people want them to come, then give them less time.
Okay. Walter?
Thank you. Yeah, I prefer that we acknowledge that this is our neighborhood, right, as CIC? Okay, so that's the most important piece, I think. We have an obligation. Secondly, I think we have to remember that this might be changeable. So some of this time here, these can go down to 30 minutes possibly, where some of that going to a land use discussion at another time, and then the CIC being involved. But I do find that I've been in this room where we've talked to Cove people, and then I see that a lot of people gang up on these people when they don't really know anything about the project. So I think it's important if we want to be involved and we want to critique these projects, and we should know something about them. So we have to make a choice as a group whether we want to be involved or not, because what I think has really been a disservice is to see people come in here and present these projects in 15 minutes, and then they just get slammed by people just asking questions that they don't really know anything about the project because they've never, you know what I mean? So
Very good
we're
point.
in this or we're not in it. That's
Right.
the way I see it. And so we make a choice, and I think we have to be in it. But I think we can figure out a way that we don't have to have all the discussion in this room in this particular meeting.
Okay, good points, Walter. Are you saying, in effect, that that maybe, like we do have subcommittees, like we did for bylaws and other things, maybe a good subcommittee that understands all of it, or do you think everyone from all neighborhoods needs to participate?
It seems to me the issue is that everyone's looking at 90 minutes and freaking out about it. So
Well, also, they need to, as you say,
nobody's not seeing it as an important
I think they
issue,
need to
right?
have better knowledge, like you say, and so they're just not asking, as you say, slamming somebody. They need
No,
to
I
understand
think
it.
we could just figure out a way that we can accommodate these 4 meetings at a smaller time, and some of that discussion and presentation can be accommodated at a different time in a subcommittee or a land use committee. But I don't know who these students or what are some of these other project presenters are. So
all right.
But I think we can come together and accept that we don't really do a whole lot of projects here, right? I mean, as a group, we don't. And so this is an opportunity for us to really step forward and really do something big. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Walter. John?
So, first of all, I want to say I appreciate not wanting to have meetings until 1 a.m. So I agree with you there. I think the timing of these meetings, well, let me back up. Alita and I went to the kickoff meeting with ODOT and a whole slew of the project team. There was probably 25 people in the room down at the Flanders office for ODOT. It's a big project. It's the second phase of what the first phase, if you remember, was McLaughlin Boulevard from 10th to basically 205. And so this is a second round of that. And it's more than beautification. This, although there are some elements to that, but we're really constrained through this particular section of 99E. So what we're trying to get ODOT to do, and they're kind of looking like they're willing to do that, is to look at some lane adjustments that are somewhat narrower than what they might typically go with, so that we can accommodate a wider bike lane and a wider ped way, and also some medians that aren't necessarily going to obstruct the view of the signage as you approach 205. There is a stormwater component to this. None of the stormwater on that section of 99E is treated in any way right now. Right now, in fact, a lot of the stormwater that comes off the site actually goes under the Rivershore Hotel in a pipeline and dumps straight out onto the river. There's no water quality component. There's no, well, in that area you're in the floodplain, so they really don't deal with detention, but there's no water quality component whatsoever in the existing right-of-way. So, and everything that we're proposing, with the exception of maybe some sidewalk connectivity, is proposed in the existing ODOT right-of-way. Okay, so ODOT owns right-of-way along Dunes Drive, and the right-of-way along 99E is all ODOT right-of-way. We're also talking about the roundabout. There's, I guess, in my view, it's a question about whether or not we want to put a roundabout. Pretty huge question. I think ODOT's questioning it. City staff are questioning it. We still see it as kind of a gateway, but we're not sure a roundabout makes sense there necessarily. But it was in, this, by the way, this graphic is from the original funding application that went to, that was how we got the funding for this project. So think of this as concept level document and not necessarily given plan. There's still a bunch of discussion that's going on, and that's one of the reasons why we've asked this group to consider it. Now, Alita asked me about whether or not Alita is managing the Jug Handle project, this project, and the water rate project, and she's an outstanding project manager. So if you've worked with Alita, you know her attention to detail, and this was yet another project that required part of the component or part of the funding for this was hinged on a strong public involvement effort. Okay. I'd love to go back to the days when we could just build projects and not ask a bunch of... Well, sometimes I would. But this one is definitely in that category where it requires a fair amount of public involvement. So Alita asked how we thought we could do that, and I said, let's take it to the CIC. This is a group that is interested in these kind of things. It is a gateway project. It is something that if you drive or walk or whatever, if you pass by this area, the fencing is pretty much a trash collection system, and it feels very much like you're still in Gladstone or Milwaukee, where you've kind of driven through a lot of pavement and you're coming into Oregon City, and it doesn't look like our front doorstep, or it does. I don't think it looks like what we want our front doorstep to look like. So there is some components that would be considered gateway treatments that need debate. In fact, if you've looked, one of the interesting pieces that I thought was kind of cool was on that December 3rd, they've got talk more in depth about the street profile and look at the PSU student gateway architectural concepts. So Portland State University and an art instructor there are donating time and energy to kind of bring some ideas forth, and that's a lot of what might be discussed as well. So I think time is maybe, we like to give some time. One of the things that I was wondering about was, this group meets at 7. Is there a possibility that a subcommittee from this group, combined with maybe, I was wondering about the TAC as well, would it be, but we've got the transportation system plan underway. I'm not sure if they've got the energy to do that either, but maybe there's a committee of this group and the TAC and TriMet maybe, and bring them together for a meeting and schedule it on these same nights. This meeting room is available at 6. That helps bridge the gap a little bit. Might be a long meeting for some of you, but it won't go till 1 o'clock, right? And so that's another thing. The other thing I want to say is all of this is on public right-of-way. So land use, there's always an environmental component to these because they'll have to do a lot, but it's not necessarily a land use project. So I think that's an important...
There's no zone change or anything.
There's no zone changes. This is, for the most part, the only piece of this that I know of that's outside the public right-of-way right now is the pedways that are shown through the vacant lot, right where Clackamas Drive makes the corner, where we have overflow parking for the boats. So really what we're trying to do there is do what's already happening by way of a kind of a rabbit trail, if you will. You can see it on this map. You can see where pedestrians walk down through that lot. And the idea was to try to find a way, and this is not the concept. There may be something much more innovative than what they've shown here, but a piece of sidewalk that connects you from the sidewalk on McLaughlin Boulevard down near the park. So that's
Are you saying that a possibility might be that a subgroup of the CIC could maybe meet at 6, and then as our meeting starts at 7, kind of overflow into that to tell us what's been happening at the meeting at 6? Is that what you were saying?
Well, I think just because of logistics, we would have to close the meeting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, it might be these 90-minute meetings, we figure something different out. And
I'm
but-
not sure what you mean by close the meetings. You mean close to the public, or that's not
No,
right?
I mean, we need to close that meeting down so that your meeting can happen at 7.
So if we had a group, a responsible group from this CIC who met with the other stakeholders and the ones you were referring to, that might be a possible solution rather than all of the CIC meeting with them?
Sure. I mean, we're just looking for a nice representation of thoughtful people that are thinking about the needs of the city, what they might want a gateway to look like. Those are important pieces. of
Well,
this project.
if we appoint a subcommittee, let's say, can some people from the CIC, if they're interested in a particular subject, stop by at those meetings anyway to hear and
They're open.
give input?
Yeah, open meetings.
So it wouldn't be required that they be there, but they could attend. Okay, thanks. Let's go to Bruce Danielson. By the way, Katie's been really great tonight. When she sees your name or your name go up, she's been putting your name on the screen here. Thank you, Katie.
We'll be leaving shortly. It's 8 o'clock. I thought, with Paul's permission, I'd like to make a motion that he chair a committee.
Well, just before we do, we have a couple other. Can you hold that, Bruce, for just a moment?
Hold that thought. How about if they had, people that want to see us, if they had a packet or informational packet to give us previous meetings so that we could study it. And,
I think you'd almost have to be there to hear what they're saying,
Yeah.
to ask questions.
So that we have a synopsis of what's going on, if we want to put input, if they don't come or you can't come to the meeting, that they can have it ahead of time.
You want the questions ahead of the debate? I'm just kidding. And before Bruce's, Tom, you had something to say, and Bob, and then we'll go to Bruce.
Williams first.
Was William up? Oh, I'm sorry, William, I didn't. You're right, they're highlighted in green.
Not to take too much time, but on Phase 1, which was a few years ago, there was also, I think it was called a public advisory council, and they had they messing with these letters, Now it's a POG. But I was on that group, and it seems to me as though there were about 20 citizens that stepped up and said, yeah, I'll help, take a look at the plan and give some opinions. It's just an advisory group. We don't make any decisions. I mean, as an advisory group, all we're doing is, they elicit our reactions, our responses, and we tell them what we think, whether we like it or not, and then they take those under advisement and make the right decisions. But Phase 1 was a long, protracted period of time. It was a big project. It was a big project, but it wasn't an inordinate amount of time. It was a few meetings. And I think now they've been asking for members to show up as an advisory group for this phase of it. And not a lot of people have been stepping up, and I think the idea was pretty generous, obviously. Here's a bunch of people that care about our community. Why shouldn't we step up and say, okay, we can do something? And if they can tack it on at the beginning of the meeting, and those of us that are truly concerned citizens make the effort, show up early, be at the meeting, like you say, close the meeting, and go right on with the CIC. I think that the advantage of that was of piggybacking onto the CIC was the fact that the space is already here, and most of us have already carved out first Monday nights anyway. They're pretty well shot. So what's wrong with losing another hour?
Okay, good idea. So it could start earlier for those who could attend, and then it would stop at that time. Tom, you had some comments?
Yes, just 2 points, and I'll try to be brief. I have a great deal of trust in ODOT. ODOT has proven with recent projects that they've done that they know what they're doing. I'm not sure they really need a whole lot of input from the citizens, but more importantly, we have a far larger situation which has arisen in the city. The South End concept plan is a major concept plan coming up this year, and the city is trying to form a citizens committee to participate and guide that group. We had a failure, evidently, with Beaver Creek concept plan, with Park Place concept plan. I'm going to put my efforts into trying to make a successful South End concept plan that the citizens will buy into. I simply don't have the time personally as a member of the CIC, not that I am not interested, because individual component parts of it may have an interest to me, and I will show up for those events. But I don't have a surplus of time to attend a series of meetings on something that is not, in my opinion, as important
Phase
as,
one, not all the participants showed up.
as something
every
else.
meeting.
Yeah. Okay, Bob, you had a comment? Come on up. Was this what you were dropping the?
This is totally different. I
Okay,
didn't know this was
we'll
gonna
still
happen.
get you on roundtable on the other.
My name is Bob LaSalle, and I belong to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and I didn't know this was coming up, but I think John went in a little bit in this direction. I'd like to suggest maybe a subcommittee of 3 to 4 members of the CIC and 2 to 3 members of the Transportation Advisory Committee to take this task on. Combined effort.
Excellent.
Okay. All
Want to
right.
make a motion to that?
Now we're up to Bruce.
They could still meet here. Okay.
Bruce, that's not something. Yeah.
That's fine. I will include that in my motion,
Okay.
that with Paul's acceptance, that people from CIC contact him that are interested in working on this. If he doesn't get enough people, he may call a few people, which would be fine if he wants to bring in transportation. Anyone that has an interest in it that could meet for these time periods, whether they be before CIC or something else, and just ask Paul if he could give us 10, 15 minutes where the project is, what's been decided, what's not been decided, where a problem area is.
Did you get that whole motion down?
It's on the video.
I think it's on the video. I think
Can you say?
I second that motion.
With Paul's permission.
I think in paraphrasing it.
We don't need Paul's permission.
Yeah, you do.
Paul already wants to do it.
He already wants to do it. That's why I'm being nice.
I think in paraphrasing that.
Hey, Bruce, are you talking about Paul reporting, or, I mean, we're forming, Alita is trying to form that group, so if we know who those people are, we don't,
That's what I was
we
gonna
basically need someone to report
So-
to this group, right?
With that in mind, what I was going to say is I think what his motion is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we appoint the Land Use Committee, where Paul is our lead, to request some committee members from this group to be a part of that, as well as the Transportation Committee, something to that effect, we can word it correctly, to represent the CIC at those meetings, as well as open the meetings from 6 to 7 to any CIC members who wish to attend. Something to that effect. Is that
Whatever
what
the
you had in
meeting,
mind?
they may not be on Mondays. Whatever works best for
Whatever
Paul
public
and
wants.
transportation.
So the big thing is we're appointing Paul to, as a land use committee, to get the group together to.
I'm not sure we need, I mean, really, this is an advisory group. If you're, if Paul's interested, I heard that loud and clear. So
Yes.
Paul would be one of those, and we just, it's not necessarily something that we need a committee chair for, but we definitely need someone to bring whatever's discussed in those meetings back to this group. So I think that would be Paul, and because he's ready to do that. But I think just in terms of if we could even get a show of names, maybe we could put those down of people that are interested in coming. And we'll.
There you go.
There we go.
Right here.
Keep them up long enough for us to. So we've
Do you
got
want me to read them
Alice.
off?
I did.
I'll go ahead. I got Alice Watts, sorry, Bruce Danielson, Paul Edgar, oh, you're already down there, Steve Van Haverbeek,
We got half the CIC.
Michael Berman,
Mike. Okay.
Larry
and
Hamlin.
Larry Hanlon,
Walter White.
and Walter White.
And I'm not sure right now.
Very good.
Good.
That's excellent.
Bob, did you want to?
And then amongst you, well, Bob's part of the transportation committee.
Oh, so he might do it.
Yeah, we'll work with Bob too.
Steve, are you in?
It's
Anderson.
getting awful full right now. He's talking about the South End concept plan and maybe involved in that too, so I'd rather just wait a little while.
I would like to make the request of the Transportation Advisory Committee too, though. We haven't done that, mostly because our meeting's not until the third Tuesday of the month, but.
Okay.
So, I don't know that we needed a motion.
No, I don't think we do at this point.
So basically, John has the names of those people that want to participate in the POG. What a terrible acronym.
I think the point is that we've agreed that
A motion on
the
the floor.
CIC will be involved.
William, if you'll go on to the next deal on the program, I'll withdraw the motion.
But the motion was so long, I didn't know it was a motion.
Bruce, you have people to repeat
It's more like
it.
a movement. It's more like a movement.
Now we can move forward. Yes.
I think there are other citizens, perhaps, at least in our neighborhood association, that might be interested in being on that advisory committee. Perhaps other neighborhoods might feel that same way, and they don't necessarily have to be part of the CIC to be productive for what John's looking for comments. I think we ought to at least allow an opportunity of a couple of weeks, perhaps. I don't know what time frame we want to discuss, but to volunteer for that, to know that it's happening and that they might be productive.
Do you
in
think that
way.
would come directly to John, or because they're part of our neighborhoods, to come through the CIC and be a part of?
They can go straight to John.
Straight to John.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
What I could do too is I can email out a PDF copy of the information that I've presented tonight to all of the CIC members. Then you guys could send that out to your neighborhoods, or if you have a meeting coming up, present it then, and then get that information right back to John so that he knows who's going to be a for sure participant.
Okay. I think that.
One last logistics.
Sorry.
Are we expecting then that it would, but they can figure out when they want their meetings, but to have it here just before the CIC with the agreement that you'll be finished by 7?
Yeah.
And if they need to, a 90-minute one, they could start at 5:30 if people can arrive at that time. So that's done by 7. Okay. I think we resolved that very easily. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, so, and as a group, we should probably, if we've moved to this point, that we should probably agree that we don't spend our CIC meetings then from 7 to 9 having 15 minutes per person critiquing when they should have just gone to the meeting at 6. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause that's what possibly could very well happen. So I would appreciate it if we just, if you're really interested and you want to critique this project, please be part of it at 6 o'clock and not come here and critique it at 7.
Good point. But we do hope that the CIC subcommittee will at least come back and give us, well, if we say 5, it'll be 15, so let's say 5 minutes at least or something. Okay, great. Okay, moving right along, we've got 5 minutes for John.
Is that right?
Mr. Lewis, you're
What's up, CPW?
You may not need it all, right? Nothing happening.
Well, let's see. A couple things. The jug handle final ribbon cutting. This will be the third and final ribbon cutting for the jug handle project. Is scheduled for October 24th at 10:45. There'll be lots of dignitaries there. I didn't bring the list, but I don't think the governor's going to make it. But just about every other elected official will be there. So that should be a good deal. And it'll be over on. They're actually giving trolley rides, because they're going to do it on Stein Oil's site, and there's not a lot of space over there for parking. So I think they're suggesting parking at the end of the Oregon Trail, and they're going to run trolley people back and forth on the trolley. So that's something that's coming. Just another opportunity to hear about or chime in on the water rate. Water rate rollback is scheduled for October 9th, and that's a city commission work session. So, remember what time those start? 5:30. Okay. We're trying to present things as we get input and have information to share. So that's what we'll be doing. So there's one. We're planning on one more work session in November as well for that same topic. Mentioned it earlier. The Oregon City Transportation System Plan open house is at 4:30 tomorrow. And since we sent out the notice that it was going to be held about the same time as the candidate forum, we decided to move it forward and keep it open. Christina will be here.
5-hour meeting, right?
Yeah, for the length of that in case somebody shows up. So even if you're not interested in going to the candidate forum, but want to get there late, you can show up for that, and somebody will be here. I don't know if any of you got a chance to get to the Singer Falls lighting event, but that was pretty well attended. I think there was maybe 200 people there. I know they gave away 100 little LED flashlights. So right now the lights are on probably tonight, should be on tonight, and they look pretty cool. They're colored lights. They're LED lights, efficient lights that have a programmable controller that we've yet to completely figure out, but we can do just about anything, I guess, with that system. So check it out. It looks really nice from 8th Street, and it looks even better with more water flowing through it. So, is that my deadline? Is that my 5 minutes?
That was the video of the false lighting.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along.
Okay. I went to a meeting. It's called the Oregon Passenger Rail meeting. There's a lot of stakeholders that were invited to that. I brought the website up here because I couldn't remember, so if I can get my computer to wake up, I'll share it with you because I think it would be something interesting for you to look at. But it's basically they're doing some environmental assessment, and part of that, since it's a federally funded project, they're required to do quite a public involvement process. So the purpose and background, I'll just read it to you. The Oregon Department of Transportation is studying options for improved passenger rail service between the Columbia River in the Portland urban area and the Eugene-Springfield urban area, a 125-mile segment. This segment is part of the federally designed Pacific Northwest Rail Corridor, which has been the subject of high-speed passenger rail planning for more than 30 years. I'm not going to go on, but it's a good website. The initial round of public involvement and public comment, they had a web page that they were looking for that kind of information, and I understand that's closed, but you can still send them general comments. So feel free to take a look at that. And the website is www.oregonpassengerrail.org. So it's definitely a long-range planning project. It's maximizing my ability to be a planner. That's for sure. I'm not much of a planner. We're hiring right now for an operations manager. If you know anybody that's interested in that, we're trying to fill that position to backfill my vacancy there.
Oh, you don't have to go back to it?
I don't have to go back to that. No.
That's good.
Does that mean
That's
you've been
good.
appointed?
That's good
Are you?
information.
Well, congratulations. You don't tell
So
us.
I'm looking for.
This is the new director.
Well, good.
Could you make that official announcement?
Yeah, please make that official.
Okay. I'm officially the Oregon City Public Works Director.
Now it's officially announced.
It's official. What's that?
It's on the nameplate.
Yeah,
Oh,
you've got the
good.
new nameplate.
Well, Bob Cullison, who many of you probably knew, also retired, and he was our development review manager for many years, and 15 years. And to be honest with you, his departure has kind of been more problematic for me than any of them because he did so many unique things for the city. So our plan, as you might have noticed, Nancy was our public works director / city engineer. She held both hats, or she wore both hats. When we made this decision, we just split out the public works director position, and then we're going to hire a city engineer, and we're going to hire now a public works operations manager. So right now we're advertising for the public works operations manager, and that's scheduled to close on the 15th of October. We really need to get some help in here and get some, because we're missing Nancy and we're missing Bob, and we actually had somebody just let us know they were going to be traveling the world for the next 2 years. So yeah, we're looking for some good candidates. So if you know somebody for that, let me know. Oh, that's right. Thank you. So because of that change, we have reduced the front counter office hours from 9 to 4. Now, we didn't give a lot of notice of that, so we're a little soft on that right now, but effective, I forget the date, effective October 5th, I think, we're going to, it'll be temporary until we can fill the position permanently with somebody who can help cover counter duty, because there's not too many
Could that be
to
filled
do
with
that.
the volunteers?
It's pretty.
It's permit. Some of it is permit based. Some of
Gotcha,
it's like
Well, it's development
technical
review.
build- yeah, building.
Yeah. So there's a lot to that position, as I said, and there's going to be, institutional knowledge is kind of important.
No.
I think I'll stop at that. There's a couple other items. If you got any questions for you, let me know. Thank you.
And anything I can do on a volunteer basis, call me if you need a favor. And I'm in there.
You're already on that other committee.
Yeah, what's that?
Just kidding.
Thank you.
And like Palm Committee.
Yeah. Okay, the Land Use Committee report, anything?
Yeah, we have a land use application, and I was hoping that it was going to be brought up and dialogued. McDonald's is come to the city with basically a facelift of their operation on Highway 99. I've gone through it. Very honestly, the McDonald's Corporation is a pretty professional people. They know what they're doing. They have consultants and architects that dot the I's and cross the T's. And it's damn hard to think that you could find an error or of something here that may not be representative of may not be correct. The only key thing that I saw here, and I would hope to have a dialogue sometime with McDonald's before they go ahead, is that I've seen other cities who have design guidelines get facelifts that are more architecturally an advantage to the city. So what we have here is a generic McDonald's facelift. And this is a place where when people drive in, just much like what we're talking about with the McLaughlin project, is should we be talking to them, and it's not like that we are talking from strength, because they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. But should we be talking to them about, is there any way that they could architecturally put something together that might be more historic or might provide a better impression of a historic city?
Theme it to the end of the trail.
Yeah, than what this is. But again, we don't have. They dotted the I's, crossed the T's. We're not sitting there with a lot of ability to say much, or because there's nothing here that I can say that looks like it's an error. It's just, are we losing an opportunity to where?
Might be an idea they hadn't thought of.
And one of the things that we talked about a little bit in Urban Renewal Commission one time was, and we got approval, the vote within the Urban Renewal Commission was to take lands on both sides of McDonald's, the land where we talked about where the boats are, that sometimes park and stuff like this. But when it became obvious that this land was shovel-ready, this land could be easily developed, much like River Shore, where you have pillars and no matter what floodplain conditions really are, it's highly visible, developable land. And the decision was made and supported by the city manager that those lands should be put up for sale. And we should enter into an active marketing strategy to market all of those lands on both sides of McDonald's. So now all of a sudden, we throw McDonald's into this thing and we're trying to say, we want to create investment opportunities, development opportunities, and jobs in Oregon City. And I would turn around in my mind and said, okay, the land right next to McDonald's, south of McDonald's, that next to where the bioswale is, if I had had my choice, I would have offered that to McDonald's and said, okay, McDonald's, we'll give you that land in exchange for doing a more historic renovation and facelift of your property. And this is just creatively trying to think out of the box about what we could do that might incentivize McDonald's to be to extend themselves a little further than what they have to do, because they're doing what they have to do. And so, but this is an important opportunity. Once they put this money in, once they do the job, it's locked in concrete, you might say, for the next 20 years. 30 years, yeah. And so I question in my mind could we maybe try to figure out what we could do that's better than locking in a generic facelift, and I would hope somebody could come up with some ideas.
Let's bring the golden arches back and just make them half
Paul,
wagon wheels.
yeah, wagon wheels. Paul, has this come before the Planning Commission yet?
I don't know if it has or not.
Do
but
they come to us first, like all the other ones?
Yes, this is, I got the packet, and if anybody wants to look at the drawings and all that.
The reason I'm asking is, so we're not going to resolve anything tonight, and you brought up some good points, but probably when they come before us, not to attack them, but suggest that, and maybe the Planning Commission as a possibility, maybe the CIC can say, well, they did make a presentation to us, and we would like to encourage the Planning Commission to look at the thoughts of doing something like that. But I think when they come before us, that's the time maybe we can approach that. It's good. Who's on the land use committee with you? I don't remember. William? And who else?
And you and Larry and Bruce.
Okay. I'm on that one too? Wow. Okay. With that in mind, I know I see a couple names here for it, and we want to get through this so we can get to our roundtable, but I thank you for bringing that before us, and I think once they get here, that's something we should ask of them. Mike, you're next.
Absolutely. Oh, you have Walter there.
Oh, he's on the list, but Michael Berman was first.
Easy.
Katie's putting all the names on here in the order she sees you.
I don't have a lot to add to that, but that was one of the first things that I thought of. And the McDonald's in West Yellowstone is different than the McDonald's in Vail or
Leavenworth, Washington, too. Yeah,
Leavenworth, Washington. Yeah. And maybe we have somebody that has a time, or I could do it. Maybe is just to go to Google Earth. It's pretty easy, and do a street view, and you just click on a picture of half a dozen McDonald's that people know of that are already thematically different than the cookie cutter style. Part of the problem, I think, is those cities that have that have guidelines in place for their architecture already that are thematically inclined to be a certain style of architecture. And I don't know that our city has that somewhat.
They do not.
And I think that's one of the things that we may have lost some of our historical edge as the end of the Oregon Trail, is that we don't have that in place. And so they might use that as a defense. But it would seem like that at some point we would look to do that as the end of an Oregon Trail historical city. So this is a good point. Maybe this could be a starting point.
Good thoughts, Walter.
Yes, it's the same with that community vision from Beaverton member that last year somebody presented to us. That you had it's kind of hard to argue this after the fact when you don't really have a community vision to present to these business owners, and it's kind of hodgepodge all along there anyways. And in terms of like what Starbucks just did across the street, then if you look further down, we actually didn't do something historic along our own waterfront. It's actually quite modern. So I think the McDonald's people would be like, "What are you talking about here? What's historic around here? I don't see anything except the Rivershore Hotel that looks kind of like 50s." So, no, serious. I mean, so we would have to be put our money where our mouth is, and we really don't have anything historic to present, and we don't have a community vision. So, it's a great thought, but I think that we're kind of going to have to use this situation exactly for why we never should have approved having a McDonald's there to begin with. As you know, if we had a CIC and a land use committee back then for that decision. In the very beginning of time, it's a horrible place for that. So, but do you see what I'm saying? I think that's part of our group here, is that we somehow get to where Beaverton is, where they have a plan and these developers come forward and they already know what to do. Same with Vail, same with these other cities. It's not something you can do proactively. Retroactively, you have to do it proactively.
I guess you have to start somewhere, but yeah, I see your point. Steve.
Maybe he doesn't have one. Sorry, go ahead.
Everybody.
Make something up.
I forgot. Okay, Bill.
Wilsonville, that McDonald's, I don't know if anybody's been out to, is it Best Buy? That big parking lot out there? But that is not, and they've incorporated some, I don't know if you had a chance to see that one or not. Oops, thank you. But, and also the West Lynn over off of Highway 43 where the Bonnie Lynn restaurant used to be. They've incorporated some design elements there to fit into a smaller neighborhood atmosphere right on.
So it could be encouraged, but not required.
Yeah.
Okay. Done? Alice?
And in addition to that, the Tualatin McDonald's has a fish sculpture that moves, and I thought that's very appropriate for something threatening to the river. I don't know why we couldn't encourage something like that if we can't go for the.
Have you been in the Malala one?
Yeah, eels.
With the cowboy?
Oh, well, there you go. You know, something could be done. It doesn't have to be a chuck wagon or anything.
So there's suggestions they may not have thought about, so that this is our opportunity.
But what could we, how could we induce a conversation with McDonald's when we really don't have much like Walter had to say, you know?
All it takes is a simple, some people say, hey, have you thought about, we're trying to really change our face and our image, we're redoing 99.
But it's a franchise or is it a corporate?
It's a franchise.
So, yeah, the franchise.
But their headquarters is actually in Seattle.
But all it takes is some suggestions to them. We're looking at redoing Highway 99, and it would help us if you do this.
They're obviously receptive to doing it if it's already in Tualatin and Wilsonville.
Yeah,
and,
it's just a matter of
and
asking.
their trend is to go to the cafe look and something a little bit different than the Roanoke look.
One thing I might suggest is, since we know who the franchisee is, investigate what other units they have and what did they do at those units. See how receptive they might be to doing so.
All right. Moving right along then. Bylaws Revision Committee, I asked Katie before the meeting started, and the city attorney and the officials are still looking at the bylaws and reviewing them. So we'll get back to that. Okay, so we move right into roundtable, and this time let's start from my left and work around the room. So I'll be last. Larry.
Caulfield Neighborhood Association is having problems as well as the high school in that the police officer for the school is not there this year. And what has happened is the school district funded that police officer 50%. They pulled the funding on it, so he's not there. There's huge problems with speeders, traffic problems. We've had 2 fires on the path from the Sequoia subdivision through to Sophia Court, and my next door neighbor's house, it burnt the fence, and there's shrubs up by leaving cigarette butts up. So what we've proposed, and we've got the school behind it and the Chiefs Council behind this, is going in and putting in no smoking signs and stating the ordinance that says that kids have to be over 18 to smoke there and enforcing it. And the next thing that we want to do is put no parking signs up in the subdivision where it's real tight. If there was a fire and the fire trucks had to get in there, that's got to be addressed. And the next thing is we as taxpayers pay for these kids to park at the high school, and they're parking in the subdivision. Now, the cars are licensed, and you can't really stop that. But what we're looking at doing is, doesn't McLaughlin have restricted parking?
Some places.
Some places. We might chat with you guys and see how you did that and see if that could be done in our neighborhood. Other than that, we're doing great.
Great. William.
Consider putting up ashtrays, too. I mean, if they are going to smoke...
They put a bucket with water.
Well, that's better than nothing. That's better than nothing. I can't think of anything in Hilldale right now.
I guess, Bill, you would know this. Probably I should. But did we get the stop sign at 6th and John Adams? I know we had to remove a tree to get it in, and we were going to have... But I haven't been by there, and I haven't checked in with my guys.
Rumor has it it's still going to be coming.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's actually in yet.
Okay. Well, that's coming.
Very good.
Katie.
Oh, do you have any more?
No.
Okay. I sent out an email to the CIC group just kind of going over any updates to what we're going to be putting into the winter trails news, and I've heard responses back from some people, but not everyone, and I just wanted to give you the last chance. I'll be submitting that information to Denise Kai this week. So if you have changes, I have a copy of what I'm going to be submitting. If you want to take a look at it after the meeting just to review your neighborhood's information, that would be great. Also, The presentations by John Lewis and Alita Foreman Goodrich for the water rate study presentations, they are going out to all of the neighborhood associations in September, October, and November to do these presentations to each neighborhood association, and there are a few neighborhoods that have not gotten back to them on getting onto the agenda. So if you could just stop by again before you leave to review to see if you're one of the neighborhoods and we can get you confirmed that they can come and present to your group, that would be great, because they really want to get out there and get all the presentations to every neighborhood.
You're not going to call them out by neighborhood?
No, I'm not going to be that mean.
Oh, man.
Not going to be that mean. If I don't hear from them or they don't stop by, then I will. I'll personally call them at home. I just wanted to remind everyone that the Willamette Falls Festival, the Arch Bridge opening is October 12th through the 14th. That's going to be a huge festival downtown Oregon City. There's a lot of stuff going on. Come out, tell everyone about it, and join into the festivities. That's all I have right now.
Is there a schedule of those events?
There is. They have a website, actually, the Willamette Falls Festival website. I can email it out to everyone tomorrow. I don't have it on me right now.
Please
but
do.
Yeah, they have there's a ton of stuff. There's a benefit dinner. There's a 5K run. There's wedding renewal vows. There's some music, arts. There's booths. There's lots of good stuff. And the bridge is open.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to thank John. We have some transportation changes happening on Barkley Hills Drive and a slimmer sidewalk, which is going to give us a little extra room by the vet across from the Chevron, and all of our transportation issues right there. So that's going to hopefully help us. And I don't know when our street's being repaved. It must be anytime soon. They've got all the other stuff going. So, and one other thing I was thinking, as a group, we should. I don't know what happens at your meetings, but we almost never have anybody from the business community ever show up at a neighborhood meeting. And I know everyone thinks, at 5 o'clock they go. We had a land use approval of a doctor's office that was expanding over across the street from the police station. It happens to be in Barkley Hills neighborhood, and I was at the architect's office with him last year, and I said, sir, can you just please have somebody from your, we'll approve or give our blessing to this, but would you please send somebody from your office to our meetings, 4 times a year? And we've never seen anybody, of course. But I would be nice if somehow, as CIC, we can start moving our business community to start attending our neighborhood meetings. And Mike is a good example of how important it is. And I find that in the residential areas, it seems like people just don't connect the two, and we don't put the pressure on the businesses. But it's really an important piece, and it's important for the businesses, I think, too. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas. I'm all ears because I've tried.
I have one. What we do is we go to a business and sponsor them for that meeting, and we ask them to supply water or drinks or coffee, and we've had nobody turn us down, and they show up.
Okay, and then they come?
Yeah, we had Albertsons, we had Big Dog Coffee.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it works.
Okay, good idea. Thank you.
Next.
505.
Root beer.
Sorry.
The Rivercrest Neighborhood Association is excited to hear that they got a grant to repair the restrooms in our park. We're really excited about that. And so at our meeting on the 18th, we will have either Scott Archer or Denise Kai come and tell us what they're going to do with that. Otherwise, we're pretty comfortable. Oh, no, we aren't.
Just when you thought.
The people that live along the park are wondering why the city has not complied with their promise. When the water park was put in, they told us it would be to 7 o'clock in the evening, 6 days a week. And now it's 7 days a week till 8 o'clock, and then we hear the water running through the night. Now, I guess the water's all recycled. I'm glad it doesn't come off of the the system, but I'm not sure who we talk to, but we'll be talking. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not passing the buck because I'll mention this to them as well. But it is Denise and Scott Archer. They're the ones.
They're the ones. Okay.
But I will tell them.
Two in one.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get them from both sides.
Hi, Steve. I was just telling Bob to come out to save time, so.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Hillendale. There's a lot of things going on, William, and let me share them with you. First off, we have a new home. We are meeting, we have our quarterly meeting tomorrow evening, and in deference to the candidates forum, it's at 7:30 p.m. rather than 7. We invite you all to come on out. Alita Froman Goodrich will be there to explain our water rate system, so you know, that'll be very interesting.
And where the new home is.
The new home is at the Living Hope Church, which is located on Myers Road at the intersection with Gaffney Lane. So it's easy to find, plenty of parking, and as I understand, very comfortable accommodations. And I understand that my better half is going to be baking cookies.
Whoa.
So we should have some nice warm cookies. And maybe some beverage. Beer and cookies? No.
It's wine. It's a church.
That's right.
That's a sacrament.
We have also some good news. We have an extra turn lane now at Beaver Creek and Molalla. That would be what on the that'd be the
northbound Molalla northbound Beaver Creek onto Molalla.
Right. So now we have two traffic lanes, a left turn and a right turn lane now.
What more could you ask for?
Actually, I was supposed to give an update on that.
Okay. Would you like to break into my report, or?
I'll wait till you're done.
Oh, okay. I guess Benchmade Knives has created a turn lane into their retail section, so that's kind of a new thing.
Submitted. They're right.
They're submitted, and they're supposed to do a presentation tomorrow evening. So that'll be another addition to another packed agenda. So that's about all I have for Hillendale.
Okay, thank you. Bob, before you speak, John, did you want to say something about?
Right. So the question is, where's the
cone's
signal?
coming down?
Where's the signal pole, and when's that going to get finished up? And so far they finished the sidewalk, they finished the fencing. There's still some more sidewalk work yet to be done, but the signal pole and the mast arm are the long lead items that have always been in the schedule to be done late. They wanted to do all this other work early, so that's kind of why it feels a little bit unfinished, and it's going to be that way for a little while. But so we've got some handrail to install yet, and I don't know. He didn't put a date as to when he expected delivery of the pole is scheduled. We were told it will arrive next Wednesday and installed, and the installation scheduled for Friday, so that be a week from this Friday. So that's the best
Friday
information.
the 13th.
Is that right?
Close.
Waiting for the rain.
Okay.
So that's the update on that one.
Okay, now let's go to Bob.
I'm Bob LaSalle, and I'm a member of the Park Police Steering Committee. Last May, one of our neighborhood committee members posed a question whether the officers of the neighborhood associations are covered by the city liability insurance, and the answer was no. And I think this issue affects an awful lot of you people here on this committee. If you're members of your neighborhood steering committees, this means that any member of a neighborhood association is at risk of being sued if anything happens during one of your neighborhood association sponsored events. Like in Park Place, we sponsor neighborhood cleanups, and there's a lot of different people that come and help us. We just lost a valuable member of our steering committee for this very reason, because he was afraid that his wealth is at risk. So he immediately resigned from the steering committee. We have another committee member that is not going to renew his committee leadership position. He didn't exactly state the reason. I don't know if this is part of it, but it could be. The city encourages neighborhood associations, yet they're putting all of us at risk without offering some kind of insurance. Now, I think that you as a CIC, since it involves all the neighborhoods, should aggressively pursue this issue because it affects everybody. I mean, we're all volunteers. We don't do it to make any money. We just have a feeling of responsibility. And the city encourages neighborhood associations. So I think they should offer us something in return for that. I don't know how we should proceed, but it concerns me and a lot of other people.
I know we brought that up before. Katie, what was the response originally? Can you remember?
No. I can think back. I believe. Okay.
Oh, you got it there? Thanks, Bob.
This is in conversations with Nick Dirkman. Does the city provide any insurance for PPNA, such as officers and directors, events, and for the signs on other property? Answer: no insurance is provided unless the neighborhood association is participating in a city-sponsored event.
Who said that?
So forth. If the neighborhood association has its own snow cone signs or equipment, that would not be covered under the city insurance. If a neighborhood association decides to have an association-wide garage sale, liability is not covered. If a neighborhood association holds their meetings and someone falls, there is no city liability insurance unless the meeting is held on city property.
That's correct.
So I don't know where we go from here.
City-sponsored event is.
Right, if it's a neighborhood.
So, like if you have concerts in the park, and there's neighborhoods there, maybe they are volunteering to help pass something out or be there for some reason, and something happens. Obviously, we have liability insurance that covers that entire event. So therefore, it would cover any neighborhood that they were doing neighborhood, business for.
With that in mind, what you're saying in just this conversation, I'm wondering if you all feel similar that we should have some protection. We obviously can't do it from here. I'm thinking that maybe, just with the words you've chosen there, Bob, that maybe a couple of us should approach the city commission, one of their what's it called, the citizen comment, and ask them to review this again, and say that the CIC membership was an agreement that we do need to have some protection for when we hold events from our neighborhood. Go ahead, Tom.
I would even say I agree with you, Bob. First of all, but we have in Katie the assistant to the city manager,
right?
And so I think I know that as an example in my household we have a blanket policy that we pay a little bit of extra, and it was very little, which was really, all of a sudden it surprised me, but it's a blanket policy that really gives us quite an extended umbrella over a lot more. And
because of all the things you're involved in.
Yeah. And I think it would be appropriate to see if the city, with its insurers and stuff like that, might be able to look at extending, what the impact might be, to provide some extensions for all of these citizen involvement in neighborhood associations activities to try to get something a little bit better than what we now have. And if we trusted this Katie to be the mouthpiece for us directly to the CEO, I think we should let Katie see if we can't investigate it a little bit.
I think we
and
already
come
asked
back.
Katie to do that, and that was the answer. So I think above Katie, we need to come
No.
back and ask.
Wait, what you asked me to find out is if you had coverage
I
or
see.
not.
Right.
You didn't ask me to
Okay,
go
I
back.
apologize.
Okay.
And be asking her to be very creative.
Okay.
Right, but I also think that we have a responsibility to benchmark. Well, I mean, what is this? We're not the only city in the whole nation. I mean, what do other cities do? You know, I mean, obviously, it's if Beaverton does it, if Lake Oswego does it, then we can say to the city of Oregon City, well, you know, this is just the cost of doing business.
Well, I think it comes down to what is considered a city function. If we have a neighborhood meeting, is that sponsored by the city? Are we covered if somebody breaks their leg going out the door? And I'm asking, I'm not telling.
It says here you're not covered.
Unless it's at a
City location.
Yeah, but what is the definition of a city-sponsored function?
So I guess then, Katie, do you want to take it upon yourself to talk to?
Yeah, this
I'll
meeting
take this
is.
back to Nancy and David, Nancy Ide and
Are you
David
listening?
Frazier. And maybe we will need to talk more in depth to our actual insurance agent and find out
Okay.
a little bit more about definitions and a little bit more about if this is a possibility and if that's even a route that the city or the city manager
Okay.
wants to. And then
And then you
I'll
come
bring
back in
some
the November
information
meeting.
back
and-
to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have?
I do have a question.
Huh?
So, when we do our neighborhood cleanups, we've been working with Nancy Bush,
You can see it.
and she has provided us equipment and all of the stuff that we need. Is that a city function?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will definitely find that out.
Thank you.
It's on city property, so you're covered.
Okay. Bruce?
My
Unclear,
question was, you
unclear.
said if a concert in some parks, they're covered
Because it's on city property.
because it's on city property. So as long as the neighborhood association had meetings and events in parks and city buildings, we should be insured. I guess that's the question.
Okay, good one.
I'll bring that question back as well.
Thank you, Bob. That was really good. Good information.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Walter, did you?
I was going to say, each neighborhood doesn't necessarily have a city building.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
Well,
Howard, did you have a
Project.
Kathy's up.
Actually, I have one more. Sorry, I have just one more question really quick. So, can someone give me an example of, because I'm assuming that, like, I personally have insurance, and if I were to get in an accident here today at work, no matter if it's here on city property or not, my insurance would cover me. So I'm a little concerned. What is your
They will
concern? So I
have-
know for sure. Like, give me one example. Just one.
Right.
Just
When
one
I fell
example.
somewhere, they wanted to know where I fell, so they could sue the homeowner. But I fell on my own steps, so I said I'm not.
Remember that we're going to lawsuit half the
Because they're
time.
looking for somebody else to pay.
Your insurance is that
Yes.
okay? your
Steve has
insurance.
a comment about that.
Okay.
So the biggest concern isn't physical issues, but more fiscal responsibility. If we, as the neighborhood association, make a decision that affects somebody's rights or, well, you know, what they can do with their properties, or then they say, oh, we're suing you. And now it's not that we're going to be out the money, but we have to defend ourselves. We have
Sorry.
there's nobody to help defend us.
Like land use decisions.
Yeah,
you
land
say-
use decisions that we say, no, we disagree. But what do we do when they say, because of that, you've cost me money?
Exactly.
So we're suing you.
I don't want to. And I apologize if this comes out really dumb sounding, but that's not liability insurance, though, is
It's
it?
director's insurance. so
It's
to
director's
speak.
insurance.
Okay, so those are two different things, though, right?
It's part of what insurance companies offer for blanket policies to the schools, cities, governments, things like that. That any business decisions they're protected because they made a decision because they're a
You're
director
afraid
of
of
it.
decisions, not physical.
Well, both. There's a combination.
Okay, I just want to
We
be
could
clear
be-
on what we're looking for and the information
we
we're
did
looking
have
for.
an issue where someone had heat prostration at one of our cleanups. That, who's covering it?
I had an event today where I had two neighbors challenging themselves in Kenema over a right-of-way improvements, and I ran up and I was up and talking with John Knapp, got the layout of everything, got the interpretation of what could be done, but this one lady in the neighborhood said, I'm going to come up and get you. I'm going to get up to the city, and very pressing. And it was, I wanted to come up and make sure I knew exactly what was being said, because I was asked as the land use chair of the neighborhood association to help intervene and interpret and help resolve this. And wow, I was making yo-yo runs up to the city, up to talk to John Knapp to make sure I was on solid ground all the time, and I was just trying to. I didn't have a dog in the fight.
You get the picture though, so we can. Move on.
And I was spending a lot of time and a lot of gas just trying to make sure I got up and got it resolved.
Okay, Kathy.
Okay. Hazelboro Wrestling Farm. I'm going to let Tom give the presentation, but I want to thank William for lending this to me. But I know that you knew I was talking about urban renewal budget. This has no urban...
There's another one.
Yes, there's another one. But when you handed this to me, you said, well, Kathy, if you would look and get the budget, you were mistaken. This had nothing in it. Thanks for remembering.
Well, you bet. You bet. I thought that's what you were looking for.
No, I was talking about urban renewal. August 1st.
Okay.
Okay then. Amy.
Well, I can announce that the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association will have its meeting on Thursday night, October 25th, and that's all I know about that.
Howard, do you have anything?
Yes.
Okay, come on up.
Before I go off on our Kenema tangent, I'm Howard in Kenema. I want to thank John and Public Works because we had a big section of rock fall out of Coffee Creek in the creek, and they come back and put it all together again. It looks really cool. And I want to thank Public Works for doing that. I've got some really good comments on that, John. My concern is Kenema is a National Historic Register district. In fact, it's the only one in Clackamas County. And we have some issues. We have codes saying what we can do and what we can't do.
A what?
Codes. It's called 1740 basic codes. And it's interpreted by the Planning Commission and the HRB. I have a little expertise in HRB. I was the chair for 6 years, and we were pretty hard-ass to what it says and what you interpret it and what it can do. One of the codes for Kenema in the National Registered Historic District is there is no metal roofs, period. In the HRB, decided that the house did not meet a historic criteria, even though it's in a historic district, so they approved a metal roof at the corner of Apperson and 4th. The neighborhood was never informed of this, either Paul or I, and it was just done. And we feel very upset about this because the neighborhood was not informed about anything. They just done it. The neighborhood association is going to challenge the HRB. For you people that don't know, a neighborhood can challenge the city, and there is no cost to the neighborhood. So we feel very upset and left out again by the Planning Commission and the HRB just doing what they want to do in a National Registered Historic District. So that's where we're kind of at. We're just upset with them, and we think they've overstepped their bounds. So we'll see where that goes. As far as the rest of it goes, is good. Metro come in, and we had a little thing, and neighborhood took them on. And Mr. Kramer told us we're the only neighborhood that's ever took on Metro and won. I mean, we saved a few trees is what we did, and they did a really good job versus the last time. Our park's magnificent, and the rest is good. Paul might have a little bit to tell you because he went up and pursued this a little bit further.
If I could, Howard gave me a call this morning when he'd gone to talk to Christina about this metal roof, and when it became evident that no one had contacted, they had unilaterally made decisions without contacting the neighborhood association on critical historic preservation issues, and gone ahead and did these things. We were left completely out of the loop. You know, we're talking about 101 of citizen involvement. And so here we are. So I sat there and rumbled, and I tried to figure out exactly what to do. So I ended up